Hello, my fellow handicappers. This is Weekend Handicapper from weekendhandicapper.com. In this video, I'm going to give you the 2 best tips for winning at horse racing. Now, there's all kinds of tips I know, but I think these 2 are essential. You go down to the bare bones of what it takes to be a long-term winner at betting on horses. Now, if you want to learn how to bet on horses, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you can get all the latest tips, tools, and resources from weekendhandicapper.com that will allow you to make money betting on horses. So what are these 2 tips? These 2 tips are, again, essential if you want to learn how to bet on horses and how to win in the long term betting on horses. So the first tip is be specific. Get specific. Most successful horse players are very specific on what they bet on, what tracks they bet on, what kinds of races, what distances, certain trainers in certain spots. The power of getting specific will lead to long-term success. There's no doubt about it. Because you become more familiar with the horses, you become more familiar with the trainer and the trainer patterns and the workout patterns that those trainers employ. You become familiar of the track trends, maybe track biases. So the power of getting specific will serve you, leaps by your game will improve leaps and bounds. Now, one of the most well-known horse players and probably the most profitable, successful in terms of money horse players of all time is a guy named Bill Benter. Now, I'll put a link in the description below of his story. Now, he's rare. There's not too many winning horse players, and certainly not at that level. That's why they make a video and tell this guy's story, because it's an oddity, and it's a rarity. But he was very successful. And one of the reasons he contributes his success to, as well as others, is the fact that he was based in Hong Kong. He bet on Hong Kong horse racing. And one of the characteristics of those races in Hong Kong is it's very isolated. So you have the same group of horses competing against each other all the time. So you become very familiar with the horses. It's a limited horse population there in Hong Kong that races in Hong Kong. So you could get stats and data on those horses, and you don't have as much shippers coming in like you do in North American tracks. You know, the horse shipping in from this track, moving up in class from this track, going to this track. That complicates things. So having that fixed horse population in Hong Kong, now I personally don't bet on Hong Kong horse racing, only because I heard there's a lot of money to be made. So if you're into that, definitely. But I live in the Eastern time zone in the United States, and I'm not staying up all night. I'm not a night owl whatsoever. I'm an early bird, so I'm not staying up all night playing Hong Kong racing, but I heard it's a phenomenal product, so check it out if you can stay up if it fits your schedule. But that's one of the reasons, the power of being specific. He was able to collect data on those horses and use those variables to great effect. And so even though you might not bet on Hong Kong races, you could still apply a lot of that to the tracks that you play. So if you bounce around from track to track, you just need some action on a Saturday night. So Charlestown is racing, so you're going to bet on that. Then you got to watch it. You'll probably get lucky every now and then, but long term, I don't know about that, if that's an effective strategy. So maybe follow 1 or 2 racing circuits and the horses and the trainers and the connections that race on those circuits. You can even drill down even more, and where you only do turf races or you only do 6 furlong sprints. You got to get very specific. So if you get very specific, if you want to take this game seriously, if you get very specific, you'll know the par times, you'll know the points of call, what's usually average, what's a fast time at that particular racetrack at that particular distance, what's slow. There's just so many variables that you'll know by pinpointing and focusing and getting very specific. So the power of getting specific is one of the best tips that I could give you for winning at horse racing. The second tip is betting only when there is value. You hear this all the time. You can read handicapping literature. Even today on the internet, you can see the power of getting value. It is so important. A great example here recently is the 2020 Preakness Stakes. There was the horse that won, Swiss Skydiver, was what's called an overlay. The value or the morning line odds was one thing, but by the time you got to post time, the odds went up. And so there was tremendous value if you bet Swiss Skydiver. So that's what you want to look for. And you only want to look for horses that offer value. You got to be very patient, very disciplined, but it could pay big dividends if you do, because that's how you do. That's how you win in long term. Remember, this is a pari-mutuel game. Horse racing is a pari-mutuel game. What that means is you're betting against other players. It's just like poker. It's not like slot machines or playing blackjack against a dealer or something like that. It is, we're all betting against each other, and the more one horse gets put more money on, the odds go up on the other horses. And that's the nature of pari-mutuel wagering. So the beauty of that is you got to look for those discrepancies. When you like a horse and you did your handicapping, over time you will know what's a good value, what's good odds on that particular horse. And so say if you like a horse, you won't bet it below 4-1. Right now at post time, as they're entering the gate, it's 6-1, 8-1. Well, that's good value. That's what's called an overlay. And so you want to bet on those kind of horses. Now, conversely, if that horse that you thought was 4-1 is going off at 9-5, 2-1, everybody's seeing what you are seeing and they're betting that horse, then you got to think twice about betting that horse, even knowing that horse might have a great shot at winning. So in hindsight, you might feel a little bad, but then again, you don't want to make a habit of betting on horses that are going off at lower odds, shorter prices than what you think. You don't want to get into that trap. So only betting horses that have value, being overlays is what they're called. So if you could combine these two tips, I think it's going to improve your game tremendously. Matter of fact, I think the game pretty much comes down to that. Getting specific, handicapping those horse races at those tracks that you know a lot about. You get very specialized and you know what to expect from those horses, those trainers, that track, and you bet on those certain types of races that you excel in at those particular tracks. Once you do that, then you look for the horses that have higher odds and that are offering more value than they should be. So look for those overlays. If you can do that, and it doesn't come by that often, unfortunately. The game is less popular than it ever been. There's more data out there and stuff, and people know what's going on for the most part. They can easily have access to a lot of data, a lot of handicapping tools, handicapping software. So it's very, very hard to do. And you got to be strict. You got to be very patient for those opportunities to come along. But they still do come along, just like the 2020 Preakness Stakes with Swiss Skydiver. If you can seize those opportunities, pounce on those overlays because you're confident in the horse and it's going off at better odds than it should be, that's a skilled handicapper, that's a skilled horse player, and you will win long term. So just give it a shot. Give it a shot. Start focusing your play on very specific races at certain racetracks, and got to be very disciplined and manage your emotions and bet only when there's values on those contenders at those particular racetracks. Those two tips alone will get you in the top minuscule percent of players that actually win money at this game, because you're not blindly betting every race at different racetracks that you have that you don't know anything about, really. So if you can do that and you can practice that, it becomes a skill, becomes a habit, then your game's going to improve. And the beauty of thoroughbred horse racing and betting on horses is when your game improves, your profits improve and you make money and you have things to show for it. It's wonderful, wonderful game. So practice those 2 tips. Get specific and bet only when there's value and bet only overlays. Okay, try it. Try it, trust me, and I think you will be very pleased at the results. All right, if you like this video, hit this like button, hit that notification bell and that subscription button so you can get all the latest tips, tools, and resources to help you become a profitable horse player and make money betting on horses. And until next time, this is the Weekend Handicapper. Happy handicapping, smart wagering.